if we can do just one thing on this podcast today, all of your prices are too low. You're not charging nearly enough. So stop going lower on price. Stop just trying to fill seats. It's about higher price. And one of the keys and one of the big factors to charging a higher price for whatever service it is that the listeners offer, okay, is being seen as the trusted authority. And really what they need to write down, David, is pre-selling.
Today, I interviewed Marty Fort, a musician, small business owner, former professor, seminar speaker, and business coach. Marty owns and operates the largest community music schools in South Carolina, the Columbia Arts Academy, the Lexington School of Music, and the Irmo Music Academy, serving over 1,600 students studying guitar, voice, bass, drums, piano, and more. He is responsible for hiring and overseeing 80-plus teaching staff. His students have recently performed at top performance venues including Weill Recital Hall at Carnegie Hall, Steinway Hall in New York City, and the Guest House at Graceland, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Marty's business coaching has also led small business owners to increase their gross profits by up to 100% in as little as 12 months with his Music Academy Success System. He is the inventor of the musical ladder system and recipient of 9 U.S. patents used by 30,000 music students worldwide. He is also the author of the #1 Amazon bestselling book, The Ultimate Guide to Music Lessons. Marty is currently in a leadership position for magnetic marketing, teaching Dan Kennedy's life-changing and essential concepts to thousands. You might have read some of his work in the No BS newsletter and caught him live at magnetic marketing events for masterminds and conferences. I've come to find Marty to be a brilliant teacher and advocate for small business owners, believing they have much more potential than they realize. In our conversation, we discuss how we met, the world of Dan Kennedy, the difference between marketing and advertising, the issues with working with marketing agencies, why businesses focus on branding rather than effective marketing, how perfection can be the enemy of progress, how direct response marketing can increase profits, and the effectiveness of your business, the importance of tracking your marketing and sales data, why you're not charging enough in your business, and much more. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Marty Fort. Marty, I always have the great pleasure of having the connection with you when we get to do it. Just so our listeners know, we have a connection that goes back to, I'm thinking back like it was 2010 when I saw you on the stage, Marketer of the Year presentation for at that time, the GKIC Marketer of the Year, 1,000 people in the audience. And I'm kind of a newbie to all this stuff. I'm trying to, figure out what I'm going to do next after I sold my dental practice. And I'm there amongst a lot of great people. And you were up on stage, and after you presented, I think it was even before I knew that you won, but I made the move. My bold move was to come up and say hi to you, stick out my hand to greet you. And you were so kind to a guy that you didn't know Adam about. Is who's this guy? But you were kind, and that's who you've always been. So I'm giving a little bit of a color to our relationship going back 14 years. And you've done a lot in those 14 years. I've done a few things, but you've done a lot. And we'll kind of tie into what we're talking about today in a little bit of your history, because we're talking about a book, and I've got it tabbed here, but we're going to talk about this new book that you co-authored with another friend of ours, Darcy Juarez, and another, I'd say a friend, a mentor for many years is Mr. Dan Kennedy. And a lot of my tribe knows about Dan Kennedy, but you and I, and you even more recently, in the last few years, you're very intimately entwined with the Dan Kennedy world. We were both in a mastermind together with him. We're private clients, but you're very intertwined. This particular book, No BS Direct Marketing for Non-Direct Marketing Businesses, 4th edition, first one Dan wrote in 2006. Now it's been updated. And, I was flipping through it. You sent me an advanced copy some time ago, and I was flipping through it again. So many key principles there that are easy to forget, even if someone knew them to begin with. You go back to the fundamentals, and this is all about driving a business, professional practice, whatever it may be, driving those fundamentals to drive the profit, to drive the EBITDA, to get things in place. So at the right time, take chips off the table, harvest it. That's my intro for what we're talking about here. But let's dive in a little bit. Your history, who Darcy is, and then let's dive into the book.
So my history is, I started, my basic plan day was to be a professor. And I was a professor for 6 years at the University of South Carolina Upstate, teaching guitar. When I found out what professors actually made, I was like, this doesn't seem like the best fit. And I was starting to get into, via the books and Dan's teachings, direct response marketing. And I started brick and mortar music schools. What I have in common with a lot of your members is I'm still actively in the game. I still own 3 brick and mortar practices. I have, of course, the coaching business, which is the biggest business. I have licensing. I told somebody this morning I write the checks every week for 85 people still, something that you and I have discussed over the years. And you don't know this, so I have an update for you because we need to catch up. There's a lot to catch up on. I'm now up to 4 commercial properties. I'm up in January where we're bringing in the senior vice president of a bank to talk about commercial lending. So I've done very, very well with commercial property. I'll be 50 in December, so I'm not planning on retiring anytime soon. But the basic thing is that the Dan Kennedy teaching helped me to really understand how to acquire customers, grow sales, manage staff, so many levels. And it really is a world, just like your tribe is a world unto you and my tribe is a world unto me, of how people think alike. And Dan and I have always just really thought alike, you know what I mean? But it really helped me to grow the businesses. And so, fast forward today, we got 1,500 music students, 3 schools, doing millions of dollars a year. Commercial real estate, I'm very excited, David, will be paid off in 6 years. By the time I'm 55, all properties will be zeroed out. I've already made a succession plan for Valerie. So Dan's helped me on, today we're going to talk about direct marketing and client acquisition and that kind of stuff and offers and marketing and helping your members to grow their practices so they can cash out for maximum value, grow their P&Ls, to grow their tax returns, to find the buyer, headhunter, whatever is going to come in and acquire them for maximum sale. But Dan's been a deeper relationship. And I've worked with him privately, you worked with him privately, and in the masterminds. It's also been, again, on basic principles of employee management, all kinds of stuff. So that's a whole podcast into itself. But right now, I'm actually, as this is my 2nd year anniversary, being in a leader position for Magnetic Marketing, which is the former GKIC, which is now owned by Russell Brunson. And so I write their newsletter, Opening Monologues. I spoke at the Super Conference, was the MC for the Super Conference, which is kind of a real weird trip because when you and I met 2010 at the Sheraton in Dallas, I was the last guy in the back of the room, and to actually be on the stage, being the MC and running stuff and writing stuff and all that. And it was this thing that I think it's important. There were, I was looking the other day on the internet about something, the Shakespeare thing came up of some people are born into greatness, some people greatness is thrust upon. That was a thrust upon position. I didn't ask for that position. I didn't apply for that position. Russell actually made a YouTube about it. If anybody goes to YouTube and types in Russell Brunson hero, he made a 15-minute YouTube about how I came to be in that. But it was Dan that said, this is the guy. Intertwined is a good word for that. It's also been, as you alluded to, with our co-author, Darcy Juarez, who's just amazing for me to get to know her. But of course, I've seen Darcy for years and I've read her stuff and was familiar with her. But the past 2 years, she has been an integral part in helping me to succeed with that. And Darcy just does a gazillion things. I mean, she's helped so many businesses, thousands of businesses, but she is a coach with Magnetic Marketing. And the thing that I love about Darcy, David, is just she's got this amazing academic left brain that I do not have. I think after 21 years of running a brick and mortar business in the streets, my left brain has been diminished. Of having employees and dealing with attorneys and dealing with accountants and dealing with the government and dealing with all the things that, as you know, from your brick and mortar days that come with running a brick and mortar, which is one of the key principles of your company, is to have an exit out. So my point is that I would totally agree with the assessment. Nobody teaches magnetic marketing at the level Darcy does. She's just brilliant and very academic. I call her the dean, you know what I mean? And so I bring more of the stories, the street cred, I had to terminate somebody yesterday, that kind of stuff. She's the one really diving into Dan's teaching. So, but Dan Kennedy, Darcy Juarez, and what we're here to do today is to help all of your listeners, whatever business they're in. So pass it on to your friends, share the podcast, spread it around, what Dr. Phelps is doing. But it's going to show them how to acquire customers. A lot of great examples in here. Big Glass is also in here. So I'm excited for our conversation today. But yes, I'm very, as you said, easily understated, intertwined in the Dan world, because it just kept going and going and going. It's been great to see you and your career blossom, and we've been good friends now going on 14 years.
That's right. It's been a great ride. Let's talk about the relevance here, because I know that a lot of my tribe, my community, very specialized, highly trained, high integrity people who provide a great service to their patients. Marketing is a word that they often conjoin with advertising. And for many of them, God bless them, they're focused on head down, hands on, fixing people's problems, solutions. marketing and slash advertising, they can join together. And for most of them, it's like, well, who do I hire to do SEO? Who do I hire to come in and do my social media? Who do I hire? What agency? And that's usually as far as it goes. And of course, we both know that is brim with minefields of frustration, because thinking we can abdicate that outside is just a big mistake. And most business owners are so freaking busy, right? They think, well, I can't learn this stuff. I can't do it, so I have to abdicate it. Then they get poor results. They put money down a money pit, and they wonder why they don't get results. And so they go back to the same old thing. Well, I need to lower my fees, get more people in the door. And it's a race to the bottom in many cases. So let's turn that conversation around today and give them relevance, which I know you can do.
I had a client just the other day, and it was his first coaching call with me. Okay. And I saved him $36,000 a year, which is all going to go net back into his pocket, to show him how much he was overspending on just what you said, an agency. You have to understand that agencies, it's an adversarial relationship. Okay, let's think about it for a second. The agencies really don't care about us. What do they care about, David? They care about commission.
Sure.
They want to sell the most product to get the most commission for them. So when the dentist goes to any kind of agency, whether it's radio, TV, Facebook, social media, whatever it is an adversarial relationship. It is not a mutual relationship. So the way I break it down, and especially the book is so helpful for that, is, as you know, I'm a big Kiss fan, okay, and rock and roll guy. Play with Kirk Hammett from Metallica. You're a Texas person. I also just, even though he's from Arkansas, but Billy Bob Thornton I opened for him 2 weeks ago. So I'm still very active in the performance game. But it's the whole thing of, I try to stress to people that Gene Simmons would say, and Dan Kennedy would say, and you may have been there to see Gene when he spoke at Nashville Opryland at GKIC back in the day. Yeah. Now, I was so broke at the time, I couldn't afford to go. I did end up being able to pay to meet Gene later on. But Gene would say, David, look, the two things you never delegate are the marketing and the checkbook. And Dan would say the same thing. And I'm still very active in the marketing and the checkbook. So for everybody on the call today to really wants to grow and exit, you can't let that go. You say, well, okay, Marty, I hear you, but listen, I'm seeing patients all day. And tell me if I got this right, Dr. Phelps. They're in the practice by 7 a.m. and they got client, as many as they can go. And they're running. They get a 15-minute lunch break, and then they're running. And then finally at 6 o'clock, things close, and they go home and they pet the dog and talk to their family, and they do follow-up calls, and they get some sleep, and they go back and it's rinse and repeat. Okay. And it's just a constant grind. So we're going to have time to how to do this. Well, you got to carve out time to be the visionary. And it's about charging higher prices, not less, because if you get the right avatars, and that's really what this book will do for you, is help you understand how to have the right message. You know where I'm going with this, the triangle. The triangle from Kennedy is the right message to the right market, okay, with the right media. And a lot of you are wasting money on certain media that's not producing a result. Now, all media is good media in the end if it produces a consistent result. And if you can track the results, we should definitely talk about that. All media is good media. However, all media can also be bad media. So, for example, I'll give you a specific example. Facebook. How many of you right now listening to this are saying, okay, well, I'm paying this Facebook agency blank, and we haven't really seen any patients from it. So they show me these reports, and we got like this many likes and this many impressions, this many comments, and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, well, what's the dollar return? Well, there really is none. So that's what the book is about accountability. But the whole thing is you got to find a way to carve out time to be the visionary for your marketing. You know, what's unique about you, what's unique about what you do, and again, getting the right message to the right people with the right media, okay? Then I was looking at your assistant's signature, and a lot of people are embracing this methodology, David. Then you have your integrators. The doc is the visionary saying, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to track this, and we're going to track this, but then you have your team integrate it for you. And so much of it can be done in-house. They don't need outside agencies.
Exactly.
So I'm going to leave you there, because you're nodding your head and say that. And I've helped so many people understand they can just do it inside their own space with their existing team. Yes. And the other bonus for that, David, is the team enjoys it. They like feeling the pseudo ownership of being involved, of being creative, but understanding the vision, and to be a participant in executing the vision by being an integrator is a powerful tool. And this book can help you do that. Lots of good examples.
It's very empowering to have a team, a staff that, yes, as you said, is participating, they're involved, and they get to see and feel direct results. There's nothing that inspires them more, because we're assuming that these practices, these businesses are providing good service, excellent service. That's not the problem in most cases. The problem is, as you said, how do you market to, how do you message to through the appropriate media to drive the attraction of the best caliber quality of patient that appreciates the value that you bring to the marketplace, which then allows you to charge a fee that's commensurate with the service. The big problem in a lot of healthcare, which even though that healthcare is not your industry, this though, Marty, is that healthcare has become a commodity that's driven by insurance. And so a lot of the professional practice owners feel like they've been hogtied because they've allowed insurance to come in and dictate to them, if you take our plan, we will bring you all these patients, but at a greatly reduced fee schedule, but we'll bring you these patients, and the doctor loses all control and gets, as you said, on that hamster wheel in the morning at 7 a.m., out the door finally at 6 p.m., and is mind boggled. But I also want to capture what you said about the integrator and bringing this marketing in-house is, yes, to me, that's the entire key. And what I've done with my team, and I'm sure you do to a great extent, your team, even though we both appreciate and we studied marketing, we'll always study marketing as the visionary. I'm not the technical guy. I can do a few things halfway technically, but even this morning we were working out some logistics for doing our call today, right? Well, did you see me step in and deal with any of that? No. There's somebody on the team that steps in and does that. So my point is, you can, with the right aptitude and attitude with your team members, there are places that they can go, like maybe magnetic marketing, where they can be engaged and learn marketing. And you, the doctor, you just have the vision and they can go implement. That's what I've done with my team. I've got them plugged in with various places, magnetic marketing being one of those, where they can also prosper and bring to the table the stuff that I don't need to be involved in, that minutia, because it'll drive me crazy, because I'm a perfectionist, and then I'll get so dug down the rabbit hole. And our doctors are the same way. They're perfectionists and they can't let go. So what do? They just advocate and go to an agency. So we're on the same page here. And I just want our listeners to go, you know what, I can do this and I can be in charge of it, but I don't have to do it all.
Well, yeah. And so, two examples to that end, of course, he's no longer with the company, but Bill Glazer always said, good is good enough. And if they would just go ahead and get something out, but it's what you said, and you alluded to, David, that, perfectionism leads to paralysis.
Yeah.
Perfectionism leads to paralysis. And if they would just get their newsletters out, if they would just get the promotions going, if they would just get the client events scheduled, if it's not perfect, at least it's getting done, because at that point, they're 5%ers. They're only 5% of people that are doing any of this kind of stuff. But again, I mean, these are, professional doctors that are dealing with important stuff and people's health and hygiene and teeth and serious life matters. But as far as marketing, it should be fun.
Right.
And it just has to get done. I would leave two things really from the takeaway from the book and my work with Kennedy. It's got to be fun and it's got to get done. And it's fun for your staff as well. Don't get held, back by that. The other thing I would say is, I think also, and let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of docs, whether it's dentists or other docs or attorneys, or, we'll call it professional services. And even though I'm in the music education realm, we're still dealing with children and affluent people. We're still in professional services, not on the medical level, but on the education and art level. I think there is my question for you is, I think there's a mental hang up on, they get so concerned about how it looks that they want it to be so pretty and it's got to be this way, and they model others, versus being a Kennedy renegade and saying, you know what, all that really matters is the result.
That's right.
Did we say this is going to do this and we bring the customer in, we're charging more? Do you think in the dental space that is a thing?
Yeah, I think it definitely is across the board. And as you said, in professional services, I say we, but the industries have been indoctrinated by what's been out there. Go back to just the basics, but websites, right? So there's people that say, well, here's what a website needs to look like. And they'll tell you what it needs to look like. It needs to look pretty, it needs to look pretty. So you want a pretty face, you want a pretty smile, but is that giving you the outcome that you want? No, it's not. I think we need to give a definition, because the book is direct marketing for non-direct marketing businesses. Let me have you define, Marty, what's direct response marketing? Why is that important to understand? Because that's what I'm alluding to here is there's a lot of stuff that's put out there to get likes, and it looks pretty, it looks nice, but where's the results? How do we measure that? And what is direct response marketing?
So I'll tell you two stories. One, the majority of people listening to this, regardless of what professional service they are in, and majority are in dental, they are used to and brought up in the world of, write this down, branding.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about the brand. And we want to be this brand, do this thing. But I mean, unless you are McDonald's, Google, Coca-Cola, you know what I mean? Those are true brands. But your average independent professional service provider with even one, two, three, four, five, six, whatever locations is still an independent business. And branding doesn't mean anything to anybody. For example, so if I move to your area in Texas, I don't know your brand. I don't know. I just see like I'm going on trying to find a good dentist for my wife and my daughter. So that's what they come up in on is the whole concept of branding. Now, why do ad agencies like that? Well, again, they like it because it's not trackable. So let's get David a billboard and let's get you these brochures and let's get you these radio spin, let's get this TV spin, let's get you a plethora of all the stuff to extract as much money from you as possible for as much commission, as I said earlier, to them. Difference with direct response. Okay. And what it did to change my life. And look, it changed my life from, again, making 19,000 a year to what I'm doing now, running 7-figure companies and also coaching with the Renegade Millionaire Mastermind, which is 35,000 a person a year, so I'm now the teacher in the quote unquote titanium group along with Darcy. I've come a long way. So this stuff works and it works. Direct response marketing is the opposite of branding. It is a way to go and say, okay, here's the advertisement to produce a desired result, which is the customer coming in, whether it's to book an appointment, whether it's to upgrade to cosmetic dentistry, whether it's to do Invisalign. You can help me out with the terminology for your niche. But to produce a desired result that they see the advertisement, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, email, direct mail, radio, TV, because all those things, again, all media is good media if it's used properly, but it's designed to produce a direct response, not wait for them to just come in one day, but as quickly as possible. And the second part of that is to make sure, you got to write this down, everybody listening, that it's trackable, trackable, trackable. So let's talk more about that. Years ago, I went to a radio station and I was taping a commercial. Talk about this in the book. I said at the end of the commercial, David, mention this station to get blank off before blank. And the engineer stopped everything and said, you can't say that. So what do you mean I can't say that? He said, you this company policy, you can't say that. I said, well, we just need to stop this right now. I was swooped in by 3 executives who surrounded me. Said, you can't say that. I said, well, then we're done.
Right.
So of course they wanted the money. They finally let me through. And I have an add-on to that. So that commercial aired to a different station, did the same thing. They taped it, then emailed me after. They said, here's the spot. But by the way, we received your deposit. We got your tape, but we're editing the last part out. I said, no, you're not. So you have to understand, as I said earlier at the start of the podcast, branding leads to an adversarial relationship. But if you're a master of direct response, as Dr. Phelps is and as I am, you can learn how to do it on your own, set it up with your integrators to get it going, to book whatever, whether you're doing pediatric dentistry, whether you're doing dentures, whether you're doing ortho, whether you're doing cosmetic, whether you're, and again, the Invisalign, all stuff's kind of foreign to me. I go and get my teeth done every 6 months and it is what it is. But it's the power of putting out the advertising, tracking it, and producing the desired result, which the key term, some of you know, some of you don't, but you got to write this down, is ROI. What is the return on investment? Are we sending out $1 to get 2 or more back? It applies to every aspect of dentistry, every aspect of professional services. I mean, I'm going to ask you a question. It's kind of like, when you enter Planet Dan, we all come from the world of branding and all this stuff. And it took me a while to really get it. I wasn't that quick to the show. It really took me time to understand and implement it. But what was your intro like? I mean, when you came into Planet Dan, the no BS direct response marketing style, was that a paradigm shift for you? And any advice for them how they can do the same? Because you were the doc, you in that life, and you made the leap.
It was a complete paradigm shift. It was a world, Marty, and I'm talking about the marketing world, the psychology of how we communicate with people that we want to ethically and positively influence, which is another word for selling, but I'm talking about ethical selling, what people need, what we know they need with integrity. How do we communicate that? It was a totally new world for me. And I'll say I was inspired not only by the transparency and the fundamentals of what I was being taught through Dan and the others, a part of the entire tribe, but the inspiration, aspiration of the other entrepreneurs who were there. I mean, I was a dentist, right? And there were other dentists there going back those years. There's been many dentists who are part of today and been part of the entire Planet Dan as it's transpired over the years. And today with magnetic marketing through Russell Brunson, there's been many, but there's all kinds of other entrepreneurs. And we learned quickly what Dan would say. Often people will say, well, this won't work for my business. I mean, right? That's the common one. And when you come in and say, actually, we need to take from other industries and other businesses because we're so incestuous inside our own little industries because this is just the way you do it. And it's like, we can't do it that way because as you said earlier, well, that doesn't look professional. It's like, do you want results or do you want to just look good? You'll look good because you're delivering great service that right now you're not delivering because you haven't gotten the message out to the people you want to attract. And I think that's the key. So that's my answer to your question. It was a world game changer for me in so many ways. It was one of those pivotal moments for me. Let me just put it that way.
And you use it not only, for professional services, but also for your coaching business, as do I.
Absolutely.
For those in the podcast today, many of you have other businesses as well, and it applies to everything. It applies to brick and mortar. It applies to online. It applies to coaching. It applies to consulting. It applies to retail. It applies to everything. So, but it's coming into a world where we think different. And it's actually, I've gotten to a point, David, where a lot of my clients will, and this is a good story. So my coaching clients will hire, it's the worst thing in the world to do, not an integrator. That's what they should do. They should get an integrator. But what they don't need is an in-house marketing manager who is calling the shots. See, that's abdication. And that's what you and I are both saying. You said it earlier. That's where it goes off the rails. And I've come to a firm policy with my team. I will not talk to them anymore. They say, well, I want to bring my marketing manager on. I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it because I'm not here to educate, petition, fight. If they're getting consulting with me as they do consulting with you, it's got to be all in. And so many of them are just so based in this branded world of they'll obsess on Google ads and all this stuff versus just getting out a good newsletter, getting out good videos, getting out affinity, personalization. And again, to put out $1 and get 2 or more back.
Marty, there's so much in the book. I've got it open. I've got things tabbed in it right now. And I'd love to spend about 5 hours just covering the entire content. We can't do that. But a few things I'm looking at. One of the chapters you authored here, chapter 2, an offer they can't refuse. And as I'm just looking through some of the highlights, you talk about using information first marketing, not product or service first. See, this is, again, it's a mindset shift because we want to think that I want to go out to the marketplace and say, well, number one, I, as this doctor, I have all these credentials. I've got these many years of experience. Maybe I won some awards. Okay, great. Or I have this technology. But you're talking about information. Could you differentiate information versus leading with product or service, or kind of like, look at me, look at me?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it goes to kind of the authority thing. I love what you said earlier about getting their prices up. If we can do just one thing on this podcast today, all of your prices are too low. You're not charging nearly enough. So stop going lower on price. Stop just trying to fill seats. It's about higher price. And one of the keys and one of the big factors to charging a higher price for whatever service it is that the listeners offer, okay, is being seen as the trusted authority to where information in advance is it really what they need to write down, David, is pre-selling. If they're pre-selling them in the right way in advance with direct response marketing, that number one, I'm going to do a role play with you, stream of consciousness. They've got tooth pain. They've been putting it off. It's starting to affect their work. It's starting to affect their personal life, affect their esteem. So start to affect. So you acknowledge the problem and it's in a report. It could be a printed report. I would prefer printed and audio and digital, all the formats, but you acknowledge the issue, whatever that issue is. Then if they come to Dr. Phelps, well, he's been doing this for 75 years and he invented dentistry, and then you just go through all points. And then you go through, well, here's what you need to do next. You've got to get on, and you don't tell them how, because they can't fix it themselves. They would just do these 3 things: book an appointment, get the treatment going, and discuss payment options. I'm not sure how many of you guys do financing. I would imagine a lot do.
No.
Because again, the insurance is not going to do it. They're really going to come out of pocket. And that's where the people are paying top dollar. And I'm all for that. And I got one more thing I want to mention about price oblivious customers in a second. And the third being the next step. So that's why the information and the pre-selling is so important in advance to get the right customer. So Greg Luther, who was in Titanium with us and was actually in the last Renegade Millionaire Mastermind, said something about me, but it was instructed to the room. He said, the thing with you, Marty, is, because I was talking about my wife. My wife goes to a holistic doc, and we have some holistic docs in the group as well. And I told them I would pay, and I'm sure you're the same with Candace, any amount of money to make Valerie happy. I don't care. It's irrelevant to me what it costs, So I work hard with direct response marketing to the companies. And he said a term I had never really thought about, David, which was, he said, the thing with you, Marty, is you're price oblivious.
Mm.
And I love that because it's true. And if everybody here on the podcast today could strive to, instead of going after the people that are nickel and diming you to death and just shopping around for whatever corporate dentist chain is next door, but you can attract through direct response marketing by pre-selling them with information and obtain price oblivious customers, that by the time you've pre-sold them, by the time you've given them the authority and the information, the prices, it's not even an issue. And that's where it should land. That should be the flow. That should be the flow. They find their way to your door. You collect their information via the lead. You pre-sell them. You give them the information. You explain the prescription. And by the end, they're so pumped about the whole thing, they're price oblivious. Now, of course, what a lot of them are going to say is, well, and this is what I hear from docs a lot, and you can tell me if this is true or not. Well, the associate is not doesn't like to sell, and the staff doesn't like to sell. Well, that's why they got to also get Dan's ruthless management book. They've got to get that fixed. I am very militant about people that work for me, even in the arts, understand that, and listen, even in a church, and you and I are both Christians, and it's important to us, you got to sell the church. That's the whole point of the ministry, not really for monetary gain, of course, but persuasion and getting people to understand that this is a great church, this is a great dental practice, is everything. So my point being that a lot of you are going to love this book. You're all going to love the book, but you then got to get it in your staff's hands. You got to get it in your integrators' hands. You have to have support around you. David and I are not coming to the table today saying, okay, here's 10 more things for you to do. We know you're busy, but make it part of your culture. Get your integrators going. And you've got awesome integrators. As you said this morning, I worked with both of them. Sure, you got more I haven't even met. I've got tons of them because I can't do it by myself either. But again, the summary of, if we can pre-sell, be the authority, give the information, tell them the prescription, and go for price oblivious customers.
Right.
And all of your podcast listeners would just have their best year ever.
You brought up a good point, and that is mindset. And it starts with the mindset, the thinking, the conviction that the business owner visionary has what they want. Your point's well taken. We can do all the great marketing in the world, but if we don't have a team that's on point and also has the right behavioral mindset thinking, then they can even subconsciously sabotage our best efforts. So you mentioned an associate. It could be the treatment coordinator. It could be the dental assistant, who you could say the primary job is simply, it's not this simple, but escort the patient from the reception area to the dental operatory and just be there to suck spit. Now, that's not really true. They do a whole lot more than that. But the point is, even the nuances of the conversations and either the confidence or lack of confidence that the people around you could be the best doctor in the world, but if you've got people around you that don't believe in your service and are also thinking penny pinching and you need to do it cheaper, doc, you're not going to go anywhere. So you're right. You've got to have those things in place. This is a continuum. Just marketing by itself, even great marketing, is not going to work if you don't have these in place, because you can stub your toe every time you turn around if you don't have the team that's on point with you.
Absolutely.
We got a few minutes left, but I want to capture one more area I think it's important. You talk about in the book the 4 keys. Key number 1, understand your potential. Key number 2, understand the money, math. Number 3, understand client retention. Number 4, break industry norms. Do you want to pick apart any one of those, or if you have time, do you want to cover what some of those mean and why they're important?
Yeah. And I want to, before we depart, give everybody a next step, because as you said, we could turn this into a 3-day seminar.
Yep, absolutely.
But if they go to freedanbook.com, they can get this book for free. It's only pay the shipping and handling, and there's some other cool bonuses I want to go over. So I'm going to go over the 4 keys with the Reader's Digest version.
Mm-hmm.
Encourage them to dive into the book to check them out. But the 4 keys I break down in the book is to, number 1, understand your potential. Dr. Phelps, you're leading your tribe in awesome ways, and they just got to, again, it's the mindset issue. They're thinking, well, no, I've got this many operatories, this many associates, there's a limit here. The sky's the limit. So understand that your potential is huge. To, again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, because I love this term. It's my favorite term of the year. If they could go from the lowest price they're beating them up to having price oblivious people, there's your potential builder right there. The number of operatories is irrelevant. You know what I mean? If they actually got the right team and they're doing this correctly, which goes into key number 2. which is understanding the money math, which goes back to what we started at the podcast, that they can't just keep dumping money. I guarantee you right now, if everybody on this podcast is honest with themselves, Dr. Phelps, they are overspending on Google AdWords. They are overspending on Facebook. They are overspending on radio and TV. They pay the invoice. They really have no clue what it's doing. They're doing it because everybody else is doing the same thing.
Right.
So by God, if this doctor's on the TV, I got to be on TV too, but they're not getting anything from it. So understanding the math of, okay, well, we did this TV campaign and we spent X dollars, and the return on investment, if we put out $1, did we get 2 back or more? And so understand the money math is crucial for key number 2. Number 3 is client retention. I tell you what I love about dentists. Every time I go to the dentist, it's always the same as it should be, where they give me a little card, even today, paper, and they write down my appointment and time, and they book me out for 6 months. And that's the whole Dan Kennedy thing, as you know, a future bank.
Right.
So you can't just let them walk out the door and expect them to hit you back on when they're coming back or going to refer a friend. No, it has to be orchestrated. But again, as you mentioned 5 minutes ago, if they don't have their team really dialed in, trained to do that, is the patient coming back? Have we rebooked? Are we having the systems to get them to come back? But client retention is everything for not only the present bank of, okay, we had a great day today, and we did this many cases, and we saw this many patients, we collected this much money, but what's going on in the future, which we should be able to predict 6 months, 12 months, what's happening at the practice, okay? And the fourth is breaking industry norms. And again, that kind of goes back to what I said earlier about the tracking, that the norm is, well, I'm just going to do whatever all the other dentists are doing. So they're sponsoring a golf tournament, so I'll do one. So they're doing a billboard, I'll do one. So they're doing this, and no, you have to be different and say, no, I'm going to do this, for example, Facebook campaign, but I'm going to do it myself internally with my team and go after the right avatars with the right age and demographics in the right areas and with the right offer, which all goes into the book of direct response marketing. Okay. So I highly recommend everybody go to, again, freedanbook.com. And you may not know this. One of the cool things they did is that Darcy and I put a lot of training into this, and I give her the credit. She did most of the work, being brilliant as she is, but they get 3 bonuses in there, David, which are huge. One, with the book, which is free, all they can do is shipping and handling, freedanbook.com. They're going to get the direct marketing toolkit, which has got all the tools they need to implement the ideas from the book to implement. It's not about just reading it, it's about implementing it. Second thing is, and this is also huge, David, is the 4-hour training we did. 21 elite marketers who shared their number 1 direct marketing strategy. I mean, that's enormous, especially that it's free. And the third is one that Russell threw in, which is a legendary swipe file from the 21 elite marketers in the world sharing their best marketing advertising material, 568 pages long. So I want to thank you for having me today. I've always enjoyed being your friend and colleague, so to speak. I look forward to catching up. And we've both been very successful in Planet Dan, but they really need to get this stuff going because their potential is huge. Go right now and check out freedanbook.com and get your book, get your bonuses, get your training, and you can be like me and Dr. Phelps.
In the many years that I have had the opportunity to study marketing in my own business and in other businesses that I help coach and lead other people, the curse of the urgency of the present issues at hand, the feeling that one has to be productive at all times, meaning trading time for dollars, being on that treadmill, rather than carving out some time to actually study and focusing on the marketing aspect or focusing on the business itself, is one of the enigmas that faces almost every entrepreneur. We're taught at an early age that it's all about us and we need to be productive and learn a skill set, a trade, create a business, and typically that business rides on our shoulders almost all the time. It's difficult to move away from that aspect of being the rugged individualist, carrying everything on our back, doing the things we are taught to do because, well, only we can do that. Learning about marketing and how that can bring in the right clients, customers, patients, the right avatar, and knowing how to orchestrate that, not do it yourself, but orchestrate it, means taking time to study that and implement the right people and the right training for those people that can take you to a higher level. It's so more important to take that time out, even though you may feel like you're losing some productivity on the front end, on the back end, playing the long game and focusing on the business, on the marketing concepts and strategies will pay a much greater dividend. In our discussion, Marty mentioned that many business owners and entrepreneurs aren't charging enough for their services or their products. And what that really comes down to is certainly choosing the avatar, the client, customer, patient, and the level of services one provides. But what it really also comes down to is what real problem are you solving? The higher level of problem and the more constant the problem remains in the hands of the customer, the patient, the business owner, whoever you're serving, the higher you can charge for solving that problem. Small problems usually bring a smaller fee. Larger problems, more complex problems, problems that persist and have a greater downside or detriment to somebody's well-being or their business, if you can solve those problems, you can charge a lot more. And that's really where the construct comes from. I never want to be in a commodity business because commoditization means a race to the bottom. It means everybody's offering a similar service or product and just trying to show the marketplace that you can do it cheaper. Well, that's maybe for some sector of the economy, but I'm not big enough. I don't want to be that big. I don't want to be a Walmart because I can't compete against Walmart. I want to compete only in my own ability to solve unique problems for a unique sector. And when I can identify what that is and how I do it and have the real outcomes to prove what I can do, charging what I want to charge is really almost limitless. Marty also mentioned the No BS book and the 4 bonuses attached to it. This is about certainly more information that in this case, I'm a believer of because I invested quite a bit of my time in the world of Dan Kennedy and Dan Kennedy's teachings. And it all started with one of Dan's books. So a book is a resource, and the right resource, the right self-learning can make big steps. But usually that starts with mindset first. It changes the way we think. And that's the starting point. Changing the way we think, which will then change our behavior, which is part of the action to implement. Just more information in life, even though maybe it makes us feel good, isn't worth anything until we actually put it into action. So mindset first comes from resources like books, programs, seminars, podcasts, YouTube videos, being around other people that are like-minded. That changes how we think. Then we need to be able to put that change in thinking into behavior, into actions that move the needle. That's the next step. And I think surrounding yourself with people that are on the same path is one of the ways to help one overcome the uncertainty and break through the inertia of the fear factor to make something actually happen. You've been there with a tribe that's done it before you. You can see it can work. That's the part of the implementation that most people miss. Starting this January, I will be hosting a small group, a private 4-week online course to learn the basics of real estate and alternative investing and how to protect your capital during times of extreme market volatility. I'll also be digging into each participant's personal situation to clarify the next steps for their financial freedom and security. If you want to catalyze your investment opportunities and your pursuit of financial freedom in 2025, then join my exclusive Catalyst Group by going to freedomfounders.com/Catalyst Group. That's freedomfounders.com/Catalyst Group. I look forward to seeing you there.